This video is covering the build of all of the parts that we've prepped so far. I'm not going to go through in detail because we've already seen everything been made. We know that everything fits together. So although everything is there, it is sped up quite a lot. And I'm just going to narrate over the top when I feel that it's necessary. The biggest problem that I had with doing this build was how warped the plywood is. So I took a lot of time to make sure that everything was held square and straight. This was a very long Sunday and I was getting to the point where I just wanted to get this finished. So I didn't really do a lot of talking. I just got on with it, and that's why I decided to speed it up and then narrate over the top. To make life easier, I'm just going to sand the inside of the side parts on the areas that we'll want to paint later on. Rather than try to sand around when it's glued together, I'm just sanding around the edges on both sides now. It saves so much time later on. Now I'm going to put the base and the lower back together. Just a quick clean up of the edges. And then some wood glue. Use the wide clamp to make sure that they line up. And then I use the set square to make sure that it's at the right angle before we clamp the wood together. And then we put the screws back in the bottom that we did on our initial test assembly, and then we can put this to one side. Now we're going to glue the upper back and the top together, and I made some 20-degree angled supports which I glue onto the upper back. This then allows me to put the upper back and the top together with support on the inside, because I was finding it difficult to clamp the two pieces together. So I use these internal supports. So now that will sit on there at the correct angle, and then I can use those supports to clamp the wood together. Double check that everything is lined up. So now that I'm happy, we're going to glue on those edges and on the supports, and then use those supports with the clamps to hold it in place. Spend a bit of time to make sure it's okay, and then we can use some screws in the top that go in not only into the side but also again into those supports. I'm just marking lines here so that I can make sure that I get them in the right spot. So we can take the clamps off now because the screws will hold that together, and we can let that dry. Now I've 3D printed some brackets to hold this front section on. Again, it was hard to clamp, but as we'll see, I decided not to use this because that piece of wood was so warped. It was just bending way too much, and I recut a piece later on and then put that once the cabinets back together. The idea was that the brackets was going to pull the wood together, but the plastic brackets would just break. So you can see how warped it is in the middle. So there I decided not to use it. Okay, so here we go. So we have our sides, we have our lower section, and we have our top section. We know that the lower section is square, so we can use that to pull everything together. So glue up the one side, use the internal support structures to hold it in place, use the wide clamps to pull those together, and then use another clamp underneath to pull that straight, and then we use the right angle with the clamps on that side. So we now have everything pulled in straight and it's all true as long as the wood was cut straight. So I then start to screw this all together, and we use some screws on the outside, and then I reuse the internal support structure that we made before. Make sure that you countersink all the screws on the sides, because we want to fill those in later, so that we don't see them when the vinyl goes on. Having the wide clamps is really important while we're doing this. We just want to make sure that everything is just hold together and it's straight. If not, everything will just be wonky and it's really difficult to put it together. So now we have one side on, we can put the other side on, and it's just a matter of repeating what we've already done. Again, we use the internal support structure as our guide, glue up the edge, and then clamp the sides together, change the set square so that we can make sure that that is held straight when we put the screws in, put the clamps at the top and the bottom, and then just put the screws in, countersink, I also screw in through the bottom to pull everything together, and then we reuse the internal support structures again. This was really late on a Sunday night. I DJ'd 3 nights in a row, and I was, to be fair, getting quite tired of this project, so I just wanted to get it done. I decided to just crack on with it. So now we're going to put the upper section that we made before. I'm just going to put in some temporary supports, and we use 2 pieces of plywood as a spacer, and then I put in some of the 1x1 wood, hold that in place and just screw that in. Repeat that on the other side. So we now have something that we can rest the wood on. And then we can use the clamps as friction to hold it in place. Don't over tighten them. We just want to hold it together and then glue up those sides. Use some more of the 18mm ply as a spacer to make sure that it's in the correct place, and then just gently work it until it's square and everything is lined up properly, and then clamp it together properly and then put the screws in. I then take out those temporary supports because we're going to put another one in for the monitor. So this will brace the sides, and it's screwed in from the sides and from the top because it's got to carry the weight of the monitor. So make sure that that's really sturdy. And now we're screwing in from the top. I put 2 screws in at the end of the top and just hold that in place. And again, we used 2 pieces of 18mm MDF as a guide. I'm just talking about reusing that part again. So now we're going to put the coin door section in, and this is still quite warped. So I'm going to start at the bottom, get it lined up, again using 2 pieces of 18mm plywood as a spacer. And we get the screws in at the bottom, and then as we work up, we use the 18mm spacer to make sure that it's evenly distanced at the front, and then we can use that to keep the wood as straight as possible. So you can see there I'm using that as the spacer, and I'm just tapping everything in place, and then we get the screws in on the side. And then we work our way up to the top and use the spacer again, and this will just help to keep that warped wood in check. It doesn't work perfectly, but it was a lot better than it was without taking that extra time. So there we have the top, the bottom, and the coin door section is now glued and screwed into place. So this is our sides, our top, our bottom, and our coin door permanently screwed and glued together, and everything is reasonably straight and true. We'll see some more of the details like the handles on a different video. But this was a long day, and I was really happy at the end of it.